Hey there, lovely soul. Welcome back to Noah's Stories. So, how was your day? Did something make you smile today? Or maybe something's been weighing on your heart. If you're looking for a story gentle enough to soothe you, yet deep enough to stir your soul, you've found the right spot. Today, I'm sharing a love story that didn't start with sparks or butterflies. It began with fear and a marriage no one asked for. But what grew from it was something tender, patient, and surprisingly beautiful. So sit back, relax, and let your heart wander with me for a little while. Because maybe, just maybe, you'll see love in a way you've never seen before. Elena Brooks was the kind of girl with a quiet soul, eyes that spoke more than words ever could, and a burning love for painting. She once dreamed her art would hang in a soft-lit gallery, drawing gentle applause and quiet admiration. But life, with its unpredictable turns, had other plans. At just 15, Elena's world shattered when she lost both her parents in a tragic car accident. They were on their way home from an anniversary dinner, and she never got to say goodbye. From a home filled with warmth and laughter, she was suddenly dropped into a cold, silent space, her aunt and uncle's house. They gave her a roof, a plate at the table, and nothing more. No comfort, no kindness, just duty. She became the quiet girl in the corner. Her paintbrushes became her only friends, the only way she could truly speak. She stopped asking for affection, stopped hoping, well, almost, because deep inside, a tiny part of Elena still believed that maybe, someday, someone would look at her and see more than an obligation. They'd see her heart and stay. Time passed, and Elena grew used to the silence. She stopped waiting for affection. She just wanted peace, a quiet life with her art, away from judgment and demands. But even that turned out to be too much to ask. On her 22nd birthday, while most girls received flowers or heartfelt wishes, Elena got something else entirely: a decision. In the cold kitchen, her aunt sat upright, slid a white envelope across the table, and said it flatly. Elena sat, confused. And then, without warning, her aunt delivered the news as if it were nothing. "You're getting married, a surgeon named Nathan Hale, he's agreed." Elena went still. Nathan Hale, 42 years old. A renowned surgeon, widowed years ago in a tragic accident. He was wealthy, reserved, and so powerful he could probably buy the entire neighborhood if he felt like it. And now, he was going to be her husband. Her uncle added, "He's offering to help us out of our financial troubles. This is a good thing, Elena. Better than staying here forever like a shadow." But nothing about it felt good. All Elena felt was fear. Fear of living with a man 20 years older. Fear of being trapped in a loveless marriage. A fear of losing the last bit of herself she still held on to. She cried, she begged, she pleaded, but it didn't matter. The decision was already made. But it didn't matter. The decision was already made. 2 weeks later, Elena became a bride. In name, in photographs, and in the hollow congratulations of strangers. And then the day arrived. So fast it stole Elena's breath. The white wedding dress every girl dreams of became the most beautiful prison she had ever worn. Her skin was powdered to perfection. Her hair styled into soft waves, her eyes lined with precision. Everyone said she looked like a fairy tale bride. Only she knew the truth. She wasn't walking toward a dream, she was walking into a cage. Her hands trembled around the bouquet as the grand church doors creaked open. Every head turned. She heard the gasps, the admiring whispers, the compliments. But it all felt distant, like a movie she wasn't really in. At the end of the aisle stood Nathan Hale, tall, handsome, perfectly groomed, emotionless. He looked calm, as if marrying a stranger was nothing out of the ordinary. Elena's knees nearly buckled. She wanted to run. But behind her stood her aunt and uncle, and the invisible chains they had spent years wrapping around her. When the priest asked if she took this man as her husband, time stopped. Elena looked at Nathan. His face was unreadable, not cruel, not kind, just blank. And then, in a breath that barely made it past her lips, She whispered the two words she never imagined saying like this. "I do." Those two words echoed in Elena's mind like a sentence she couldn't take back. As applause filled the church, she felt her soul drift further away. Nathan's hand gently rested on her back, guiding her down the aisle, while her heart beat like a caged bird inside her chest. Outside, the sun was setting in brilliant gold, too beautiful, too cruel, like a silent mockery of the chaos within her. The reception passed in a blur of clinking glasses and hollow congratulations. Elena sat beside Nathan like a porcelain doll, elegant, silent, hollow. He remained the perfect host, speaking to guests with a warm voice, glancing at her occasionally with unreadable eyes. And somehow that calm terrified her more. Because she knew what came next, behind closed doors. When the car pulled up to Nathan's grand estate, her palms were slick with sweat. He opened the door for her, his hand brushing the small of her back, gentle but enough to send a jolt through her. The house was massive, too quiet. Each footstep echoed in the stillness, mirroring the panic thudding in her chest. Nathan led her upstairs to the master bedroom, a golden, candlelit space that looked straight out of a magazine. She froze. Her fingers tightened around the edge of her dress. "You can change in the bathroom," Nathan said softly. "I'll wait here." She nodded and disappeared behind the door. When she emerged in a silk nightgown, he was seated on the sofa, jacket removed, collar loosened, fingers laced together in his lap. The silence between them was deafening. Elena stepped hesitantly toward the bed, unsure if her legs would hold. Nathan stood. "I'm scared," she whispered. Then, the unexpected happened. Nathan didn't move closer. He didn't touch her. Instead, he looked at her, quiet, steady, and said, "You don't have to do anything tonight, Elena. Nothing at all." She looked up, confused. "But you're my husband." "I know," he said gently, "but I'm not someone who forces." He pulled a blanket from the chair and placed it on the sofa. "You can sleep on the bed, I'll take the couch." Elena stood frozen. A strange wave of relief hit her, followed by something else, softer, warmer, like she'd just been rescued without even asking. That night, she lay in the large bed alone, listening to the wind behind the curtains and Nathan's calm, steady breathing. For the first time since the marriage, Elena didn't feel entirely trapped. And for the first time, she began to wonder if maybe, just maybe, this wasn't the end, but the beginning of something unexpected. The next morning arrived gently. Elena woke in the wide, quiet bed, soft sunlight spilling through the sheer curtains, casting golden patterns across the floor. She turned slowly, heart still heavy from everything that had happened, but something caught her eye. The sofa was empty. The blanket had been neatly folded. Nathan was gone. A strange pang bloomed in her chest, one she didn't quite understand. And then she saw it, on the bedside table, a small bouquet of pale lavender sprigs, and a handwritten note, "Wishing you a gentle morning." "Nathan." Elena picked it up, reading it over and over again, searching for something beneath the words, but there was no hidden message, just kindness, sincere and quiet. That day she wandered the estate in silence. Everything was orderly, peaceful, like him. She didn't see Nathan. But that evening, there was a small box waiting outside her bedroom door, dark chocolate tied with a purple ribbon. The next day, a hand-knitted scarf, soft lavender, just like the flowers. At first, she was suspicious. Was this some elaborate performance, a trap dressed in thoughtfulness? But what puzzled her more was that Nathan never asked anything in return. He didn't mention the gifts, never waited for her reaction, he simply left them. And each night he still slept on the sofa. Each morning the room was pristine. He moved like a quiet presence. There, but never imposing. One evening, Elena wandered into the library. The room was filled with old books and warm lamplight. Nathan sat there reading, completely absorbed, his fingers following the lines on the page. She watched him for a while before he noticed her. When he looked up, his eyes softened the moment they landed on her. "Good evening," he said, his voice calm, not surprised, not expectant. just warm enough to keep her from walking away. Elena hesitated, then asked, "Why are you doing all this for me?" Nathan closed the book and sat in silence for a moment. Then he said, "Because I want you to know you're not a debt. You're not a transaction. You're my wife, but more than that, you're a person, and you deserve to live like one." The words cut through something inside her, something she hadn't realized was still hurting. No one had ever said that to her. No one had ever seen her as anything more than a burden, until now. That night, for the first time, Elena left her room quietly, walked to the table near the sofa, and placed a note. It read simply, "Thank you." From the moment Elena left that quiet note, "Thank you," something began to shift between them. Not with words, not with sudden changes, but with silence that no longer felt heavy. The next morning, when she joined Nathan for breakfast, he simply nodded, poured her tea, and offered a soft glance, like it was the most natural thing in the world. For the first time, Elena didn't feel like an intruder in that grand house. She began to notice the little things: the chair by the fireplace always pulled out for her, the quiet way Nathan closed doors, the dinners filled with dishes she'd mentioned once in passing. And then that night, the nightmares returned. This time, harsher. Screeching tires, shattering metal, red lights flashing. Elena woke, heart pounding, body drenched in sweat. She curled into herself, trembling. The door opened. Nathan entered, eyes wide with concern. "Elena?" He rushed forward, kneeling beside the bed. "What happened?" She couldn't speak. Tears ran down her face. Her breath came in shallow bursts. He didn't touch her. He just sat there, giving her space. "A car crash?" he asked gently. She nodded. "I was 15. Lost both my parents." Silence. Then Nathan's voice came. Quiet. Raw. "My wife, she died in a car crash too, driving home after a long shift. I still remember the way the headlights hit her face. That's the last thing I saw." Elena looked up. Their eyes met. Really met, for the first time. He added, "I was the surgeon on call that night, but I wasn't fast enough. I couldn't save her." Elena's heart clenched. That kind of pain, she knew it too well. And without thinking, she reached for him. Her hand brushed his. Nathan didn't move. He let her choose. "We both lost everything that night," she whispered. Nathan nodded. "But maybe we don't have to be alone anymore." Elena leaned in, resting her head on his shoulder. In that shared silence, two broken hearts found solace, mending together in the quiet comfort of each other's presence. Elena was still resting her head on Nathan's shoulder, her breathing gradually steadying after the nightmare. In that quiet room, neither of them said another word. And somehow that silence made every emotion feel more vivid than ever. Nathan stayed right where he was, unmoving, offering himself as her place of comfort. Elena slowly turned her face, her eyes settling on his features, firm yet weary, gentle yet scarred. And for the first time, she looked at him, not as a stranger. "Nathan," she whispered, her voice barely steady. He lifted his head to look at her. "Yes?" Elena didn't answer with words. She reached out and gently touched his cheek, her fingertips brushing across his skin, as if searching for something hidden between the distance that had once separated them. "I want to," she said softly, her voice breaking slightly, heart pounding so hard it almost hurt, "not because I owe you anything, but because I trust you." Nathan didn't move. His eyes darkened, not with desire, but with quiet emotion. "Elena," he said gently, "you don't have to do anything. I promised I'd wait." "But I don't want to wait anymore," she said, her voice steadier now. "I don't want to live another day in fear. I want to begin here." At that moment, Nathan simply nodded. No rush, no pressure. It was she who pulled him closer. She was the one who kissed him first. Tentatively, trembling, but with conviction. They didn't speak again. There was no need. Every breath, every touch, closed the distance that had once felt infinite. That night, Elena didn't feel like something being given away. She felt like someone who had been chosen, loved, cherished, exactly as she was meant to be. When Elena woke the next morning, sunlight was already filtering through the curtains, casting a soft glow across her face. But it wasn't the light that made her smile. It was the warmth of the arm gently wrapped around her waist. Nathan was still asleep, his breathing slow and steady, his chest pressed lightly against her back, grounding her in a strange but calming peace. Elena turned carefully to face him. Up close, his sleeping face looked nothing like the guarded man she first met. There was tenderness now, exhaustion perhaps, but also serenity. What moved her most was how, even in sleep, he kept enough space to respect her. She didn't regret anything, not for a moment. Instead, she felt lighter, as if something inside her had finally unlocked, and for the first time in a long time, the light was beginning to come in. That day, everything felt different. Nathan didn't treat her any differently. He was still gentle, still quiet, still thoughtful. But now, when their eyes met across a room, Elena didn't look away. She smiled, and he did too. That evening, they shared dinner beneath the soft chandelier light in the grand dining room. But the silence wasn't awkward anymore. Elena spoke about her paintings, her childhood memories, the dreams she once buried deep inside. Nathan listened intently, kindly, asking questions, never interrupting. And when it was his turn, he opened up, not to revisit pain, but to let her in. He spoke about the man he used to be, a doctor who believed success was everything, until he lost his first wife and realized he didn't know how to live anymore. Elena squeezed his hand under the table, and this time, Nathan squeezed back. No more walls, no more fear, just two hearts, once shattered, slowly, carefully learning to become whole again. And Elena knew. She was no longer the wife forced into marriage. She was Elena, the woman Nathan chose to stay beside, and the woman who chose him too. 1 year after that night, on a quiet early spring morning, sunlight streamed gently through the window as Elena slowly stirred awake. The first thing she felt was the warmth of an arm wrapped around her waist. Nathan was still beside her, breathing steadily. But what made her heart flutter was the tiny figure nestled peacefully in his arms. Their newborn daughter. Only a few weeks old, yet she already brought with her a world of softness, brown curls, a perfect little face, and lips pursed as if dreaming of something beautiful. "She looks like you," Nathan whispered, never taking his eyes off their child. Elena smiled, her voice catching from the quiet flood of emotion. A year ago, she had believed her life was filled only with loss. Now, she was holding everything. Love, peace, a real family. Elena kissed their baby's forehead, then turned to Nathan. With tears shimmering in her eyes, she whispered, "Thank you for not giving up on me, for waiting, for teaching me how to trust and how to love." Nathan gently pulled them both closer. "I stay," he murmured, "not out of duty, but because you are my home." And in that gentle, golden morning, wrapped in warmth and steady heartbeats, Elena finally knew. They hadn't just found an ending. They had found their forever.